Well, good morning and welcome to our study series, The Road to the Cross, as we parallel along with Pastor Don's sermons through this season of Lent. Before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items that I need to take care of this morning. One, I need to apologize to any of you that have added a comment expecting me to reply on the YouTube video. It just was brought to my attention this past week that you could comment there. Uh, just right over my head, since I don't normally use that as a way of communicating. So, any of you that have commented in the past and I haven't responded to you, I apologize for that, and I know now to look at that in the future. Uh, how that came to be is that a comment that was relayed to me concerning the empty chairs that are behind me, and wondering about the lack of people filling those chairs. Well, I have to tell you, this room is a multi-purpose room that's used for a lot of different things during the week. Our after-school program uses it a couple evenings a week. We use it for various church meetings at different times, and so there are always probably more chairs in this room than the people that are filling them up, so that we can use it for different configurations. Um, but I also want to extend an invitation to any of you that would like to come and join us as we sit here on Sunday mornings. We record this on Sunday mornings from 9:15 to 9:30, give or take a little bit on those times. Sometimes we run a little bit longer there, and sometimes we don't get started right at 9:15. But that's my target, and we'd love to have you come and sit at the table with us as we discuss this. This morning, on our road to discovery, our individual that we're looking at is Barabbas. And I want to start with the scripture this morning. We're in the 23rd chapter of Luke, the 18th through the 24th verses. But with one voice they shouted, "Away with this man, release Barabbas to us." Barabbas had been thrown into prison because of a riot that had occurred in the city and for murder. Pilate addressed them again because he wanted to release Jesus. They kept shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." For the third time, Pilate said to them, "Why? What wrong has he done? I found no legal basis for the death penalty in this case. Therefore, I will have him whipped and then let him go." But they were adamant, shouting their demand that Jesus be crucified. Their voices went out. Pilate issued his decision to grant their request. Now, the before we get totally into this, I think we need to talk a little bit about the scene, the setting here, and all the dynamics that are going on. Um, the Jewish council has sentenced Jesus. They've tried him and sentenced him, and passed him on to Pilate. And the reason for this is the Jews did not, while they had in the Jewish law, there was a death sentence. Under Roman law, they did not have the authority to carry that out. In fact, if they killed someone in response to the law there, then they themselves could be brought on trial in the Roman judicial system. So they convicted Jesus, the Sanhedrin had, and passed the death sentence. And now they pass him on to Pilate because they need the Roman death sentence in order for Jesus to be killed. Um, Now, Pilate doesn't want any parts of this. Pilate's a politician. He wants to walk that fine line between either side. He doesn't want to offend. He doesn't want to necessarily appease one side or the other. He just wants things to stay calm, cool, and collected, and not draw any attention to himself. But he knows that Jesus is innocent, at least under the Roman law, that Jesus is innocent. And so he's concerned that if he issues a death sentence here, that he himself could later find himself in trouble with the Roman government because Jesus is innocent. So he's got that going through his mind. He's also got the fact that he's got two strikes against him already, where the Jewish people are concerned over things that he had done since he had been governor. When he became governor, he marched his troops into Jerusalem, um, and it had been the practice to appease the Jewish leaders that when the Roman soldiers, when they marched into an area, they had their standard, battle flag, if you will. On the top of that standard, there was an image of Caesar, because under the Roman order of things, Caesar was God. They referred to him as God. And because of that, when they marched into the city with that on top of the standard there, then the Jewish leaders would just go crazy over that. They just couldn't stand it. Previous governors had tried to appease them by taking the standard off when they marched troops into Jerusalem and then putting it back on. Don't know how that would sit with Caesar. Pilate chose to, here again, try to walk that fine line. He marched his troops in at night where the crowds weren't out there and didn't remove this image. Well, the leaders found out about it and they were highly upset about it. The other thing that Pilate had done, the other strike that was against him, is that trying to make a name for himself after he became governor, he had appropriated some of the temple tax money for a public works project. He had a new aqueduct constructed to bring water into the city, and it was financed by money from the temple treasury that he appropriated, and that didn't sit well with the Jewish leaders. Under the Roman governing system, if the people of the area complained to Caesar about things that the governor was doing, then the governor was just simply removed. There wasn't any explain yourself. It was, been nice knowing you, here's the new governor. And so Pilate was trying to walk that fine line to keep them from appealing to Caesar so he didn't get thrown out of office, but yet try to uphold the law as best he could. Now, it was not the Roman custom, but it was the under the Jewish law that one of the prisoners would be granted amnesty and his sentence commuted or pardoned, if you will. And Pilate knew this, and so he tries to offer another way to spare Jesus the death penalty by saying, okay, you have this custom to release somebody, I'll release Jesus this year. And they said, crucify him, give us Barabbas. Now, Barabbas was a really despicable character. He was in prison because he had incited a riot. He had also been involved in the murder of someone. He truly deserved the death penalty. And he was the last person that Pilate would wanted to have let out of prison. But he's the one that we focus on today, Barabbas. He's there with two other prisoners. Now, I had not seen these names. I don't know where Burkhardt came up with these names, but he gives names to the other two prisoners that were there with him that were going to be crucified. One is Decimus, and the other is Gestas. Gestas is the belligerent one who dies on the cross still casting curses out and just a very angry man. Decimus would be the one that we know that has a conversation with Jesus, and Jesus tells him that you will be with me today in paradise. that you've been forgiven, and the crimes that brought you here, don't worry about that, that God's going to take care of you. Um, Here again, I've never seen those names before. I don't know where Bob Burkhart came up with those. I suspect that they were just names that he just imagined and assigned to them for the sake of his dialogue. Um, the dialogue that he records here is what's going on in the prison cell, um, and the thoughts that are running through Barabbas' mind as he's waiting to be crucified. Um, he points out that Barabbas has some things going against him. He has his past, the things that he's done in his past. Um, he doesn't use any discipline in his life. If he decides, if something occurs to him to do it, he just does it. He doesn't think about the repercussions of it or anything like that. And here again, related to his past, the choices he's made and the conduct as a result of those choices are all standing against him. And after the crowd has been adamant and Pilate realizes that he's actually gotten himself into a corner by suggesting that they release someone, if he hadn't brought it up, Barabbas probably would have died that day. And there would have been 4 crosses instead of 3. But once he brought it up and the crowd asked for Barabbas to be released, then he had no choice but to release him. Burkhart, in his dialogue here, he has the centurion who's escorting Barabbas out of the prison. And as he opens the door for him to go out, he just kind of smirks at him and says, "You'll be back. We haven't seen the end of you. You're getting off this time, but your date with the cross has just been postponed. It hasn't been wiped clean. In other words, I know you're kind. You're not going to change your attitude. You're going to be back here in very short order." And then Barabbas goes free. Now, also in the setting leading up to this, just a few short days, this takes place on Thursday or Friday morning. On Sunday, the preceding Sunday, that we celebrate as Palm Sunday. What happened? What happened that day? Why do we celebrate it?
That was the day he came to Jerusalem with,
Jesus came into Jerusalem, the palms, the crowd shouting and yelling, Hosanna, praise. There's a painting that a friend found on the internet and shared with me several years ago that really brought this scene to life to me. I don't think that we fully understand and comprehend that Jesus coming in and the crowd being there, just what that meant. They had the city of Jerusalem had a wall all the way around it, and there were gates, and it was through one of these gates that Jesus entered into the city. Probably, I believe it's the Eastern Gate. There was one of the gates that lined up with the temple. That as you came through the gate and looked straight down the road, the temple was at the other end of that. And I think that's the gate that Jesus came in on. But the wall, you had the wall here and you had this gate, and the wall was a thick wall. People actually had living quarters inside the wall. It was that thick. Had this walkway around the top of it. And so when we talk about a crowd being there, you have the crowd above, you have the crowd below. The gate was only so wide, and so this served to constrict everything in there. So when we say that there was a crowd, it's not too far a fetch to say that like you're sitting down the side of the table here, and the table being the road here. Well, that's just about how constrained it would have been for Jesus to come in and for the crowd to be focused there. And the crowd mentality that would have been, I think, serves to encourage people and draw them into what's going on there. The point is, this same crowd, many who were in that crowd would have later been in this crowd where Jesus is being tried before Pilate. And what do they say this time? Crucify him. They didn't just say crucify him. They said crucify him. You know, they were shouting. They were angry.
Excuse me, but how do you know they were the same crowd?
I
They're
said
totally different people.
it could have been, but I suspect that there were people in both crowds that day.
But they've had a whole week, and they finally realized he wasn't a military ruler coming in to take over. He was part of the religious stuff. He was still a pacifist. He didn't want to create a problem. He wanted to solve the problem because that's what God sent him on earth to do. But the people were looking for a military ruler to overthrow the Romans, get them out of there, straighten up the Jewish leaders, get rid of the corrupt ones, that kind of thing. That's what they wanted, but within 7 days now, the whole attitude has changed because Jesus hasn't taken control quick enough. It's almost like the Russians with Ukraine right now. The whole world is getting a little upset now. Well, Putin hadn't taken control of Ukraine yet, so it seems like now he's starting to get pushed back because some of the reports you get, he's losing ground instead of gaining ground. So now the whole world is going against, helping the other ones push him back further to get back out of the borderline. And that's what these people were doing. They're a little upset because Jesus hadn't taken control.
Well, let's come back to Barabbas. Now, the centurion, as he's escorting Barabbas out of the prison, sort of predicts that you're not going to change. You're coming back. I know you'll be back before we know it. And you will be executed. It just won't be today. Do you think, or have you ever thought, whether these events that unfolded there, do you think they had any impact on Barabbas in the life that he lived?
You'd like to think so. We don't know.
This is the only mention we have of Barabbas. He comes in here and he disappears here. And these short verses are the only thing that we have. Thank you, Aaron. The only short mention that we have of him. So we don't know. But the possibility exists that these events did cause him to change his ways. So many other people that were confronted with Christ did change. The Apostle Paul and the way that he was conducting his life, and then what happened after he was confronted with Christ on the Damascus Road.
I don't think anything would have changed Barabbas at all until after the resurrection and Barabbas.
Yeah, as he started to reflect on it. I kind of fall on that side of the pendulum, or the thoughts about that too, that he had the ability to, or the possibility exists that these events did cause him or help him to change his ways, and that he did not have to face the Roman executioner at a later time. But we really don't know. on that. Any other thoughts or comments as we wrap this up this morning?
Just kind of curious about the Barabbas and then the other two gentlemen that were in prison as well. Would they have been Jewish?
Could have been. Being that they were in Jerusalem, the odds are that they were.
Outside Jerusalem probably didn't know anything about Jesus before.
Yeah. The scene that's here in Jerusalem, the Romans are occupying the area. The Jewish leaders really don't want the Romans there. There are within the Jewish people a group that are called Zealots, whose sole purpose in life was to disrupt the Roman order. And they would go through the crowd. They had would carry a dagger in their sleeve, and they get into a crowd and they just stab somebody and just keep on going, and they would just blend in with the crowd there. But that's the type of thing inciting to riot that Barabbas type of activity Barabbas would have been involved with. So for Barabbas, given the Zealots there, I'd say it's a high probability he was Jewish. And just by the fact that it was in Jerusalem, the other two probably were also. Well, I think
And he might have hung around long enough to see if they would actually crucify Jesus and the other two.
Yeah.
You don't know, he might have said, well, they let me go, maybe the other three might get off too, maybe I'll hang around and see what happens.
Could be. In fact, I think that he probably did. Well, in a little while, we'll see what Pastor Don has to say. Thank you for being with us this morning. Hope that, as always, that we've given you something else to think about with these scriptures as we've looked at the individuals that were a part of this drama that was playing out as Jesus is journeying onto the cross. But thank you for being with us this morning.